So the 19th volume of the One Piece magazine is out, and as per tradition, we have some Dough Fruit drops in which we get to see the actual physical objects that have given characters these powers. So the Hobby Hobby no Mi, otherwise known as the Hobby Hobby fruit, is revealed, whom is being held by Sugar at the moment of the Don Quixote family. And then we have the Stitch Stitch fruit, otherwise known as the So So fruit, otherwise known as the New New no Mi, held by Leo of the Tontata Pirates and the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So, as per tradition, the fruits being revealed usually have some sort of relationship with one another, or at least their users do. And in this situation, both Leo and Sugar are very prominent antagonists and protagonists in the Dressrosa arc. And Sugar is a very important antagonist at that, because she is the keystone, the linchpin that holds the whole Don Quixote family organization together. Because of her, the entire nation is being controlled by the family due to the abilities of the Hobby Hobby fruit. Because when she touches someone, a living being, that is, could be an animal or a person, they become a toy and the world forgets about the original person's existence. What's also very interesting about this ability is that Sugar can give a contract to a freshly turned toy that gives them rules that they must follow. This too was the downfall of Sugar, because when she turned Kyros into the toy soldier, she did not give him a contract. Therefore, it gave him the ability to use his free will even as a toy, even though everyone in Dressrosa and the world by that point had forgotten about him. Also, what's interesting about her ability is that she is one of very few people who have a paramecia fruit who is permanently affected by said power physically in some way. So, because of her ability, she is stuck physically at 10 years old, even though in actuality she is 22. And we actually get to see how she looks at age 22 thanks to an SBS drop. So that's pretty neat. And what I didn't know, which is why the thumbnail looks like this, but what I didn't know is that she's actually the younger sister of Monet, the bird woman that we meet in Punk Hazard, whom has been affected by Law's abilities, but is the first and I believe only female Logia user in the series with the ability of the Snow Snow fruit. So that's pretty neat that we get like two Logias back to back in the Punk Hazard arc. But continuing on with Sugar, what's super interesting as well about her design and Leo's design is they're both wearing crowns. And I don't know why that is. With Leo, it looks like he's wearing like either a cloth crown or a paper crown, which he then swaps out for a pirate hat once he's officially the captain of the Tontata Pirates. And then Sugar's wearing a golden crown, probably because she's like a key part of the Don Quixote family's operation, because she's a very useful weapon in that she can make opponents not exist with a simple touch and then turn them into permanent slaves. But what's also very interesting about the two is that both of them kind of oddly relate to the antagonist, well, the main antagonist of the Dressrosa arc, Doflamingo, because Sugar can create toys whom are attached to strings, and then Leo can stitch objects and people together as if they were being sewn into each other or objects by string. And I always thought that it would be revealed at some point, but I guess that's not the case, that the Stitch Stitch fruit and the String String fruit would have some sort of relationship with one another, because one just seems to be a lesser version of the other because they both use string. But Doflamingo obviously has more variety in what he can do as opposed to Leo, but it's just kind of weird that their abilities are quite similar to one another. But with that being said, Sugar's ability is quite interesting because she's one of the few Delphi users in the series whose ability gives rise to a kind of race in the One Piece world because toys are looked at as a race, seeing as how there were a whole island full of them. This is very similar to, say, the Shadow Shower Fruit zombies or the Soul Fruits homies. However, the difference between the Hobby fruit and the automatons created by those two fruits is that special conditions have to be met for those other two fruits to create those automatons, whereas the Hobby fruit has automaton creation as its main ability, which is something in itself. What's also very interesting is that I guess you could say another attribute of the Hobby fruit is that it technically gives the user eternal youth, and they are technically immortal, seeing as how Sugar is forever age 10, even though she's a full adult woman at age 22. This is very similar to, say, Brooks' Revive fruit, as it too, in a way, gives a means to give the user immortality. So that's something interesting. That's very interesting. But I gotta say, based on the designs of these two fruits, the Hobby fruit makes a lot of sense because it looks like a cross between a wind-up toy, because it has a wind-up key as a stem, and a yo-yo, as the body of the fruit reminds me of a yo-yo. I think this is the first fruit in which it has a big swirl in the middle on top of having swirls in the center of it. So that's kind of interesting and that's kind of new. But the new Nomi, the so fruit, looks like a big mess. It looks ugly and terrible. It reminds me, though, of a baseball a little bit. I don't know if that was the point. It's like a baseball and a yarn ball fused together with a stem piece through the eye of the needle, which is wild. And I don't know why anyone would eat this, but its design is very on the nose. It makes sense. It feels like something out of a Tim Burton film, but it makes sense for how it looks. It looks ugly, that I don't know how you would eat this, but yeah, it is what it is. It's also kind of wild just how absolute Leo's ability is as a whole, which makes me think, I wonder, is his power really inferior to Doflamingo's? Because when he stitched something together, it just kind of works. Though I'm not sure if Leo actually always needs his needle in order for his stitching to work. I say that because he's always holding it when he's doing his stitching. So I'm not sure if the needle is required or he could just stick things together just because. It's very confusing in that way. Oh, one last thing I want to point out just between the two characters. It's very funny that Leo is an adult that has the naivete of a child. And I guess that's just a thing between all Tontara. They're very naive. Whereas Sugar looks like a child, but she's actually a very cunning adult. So I think that's a very interesting character relationship. Also, what's interesting about this too is that the Tontara look up to Usopp because they see him as a descendant of Nolan, whereas Sugar is defeated by Usopp because Usopp is someone who is often paired up to defeat very powerful little girls, apparently. I don't know why that's a theme in the series, but apparently it is. Apparently it is. Because we had this same gimmick with Perona back in the day. But yeah, with that being said, that's all I have for today. Give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. Whoops!